Okay, so this is a pop-up session. I didn't share anywhere really. Whoever joins in, joins in. I'll keep it up maybe for the next 24 hours or so. And I'll probably make it a unlisted link. But the purpose of this session now, shout out to my KHM family that's out there and the people that enjoy the content on this channel. I know y'all was expecting a Freestyle Friday or Saturday Night Live. My weekend is crazy hectic. I actually got some downtime now for another hour or so, probably an hour and a half. So I wanted to get this session out. If people are watching this on replay, that's fine. That's what I anticipate because I didn't really share this link or anything like that. It was really a pop-up session. However, a discussion had ensued, has been going on for maybe the whole day, where there was a post on Facebook in which two individuals were making certain assertions in opposition of Israelites, existing and being in Africa, etc. So an associate, Dimitri, he continued a dialogue with them, made a separate post, kind of baiting them in. And I was simply saying, hey, if you want some evidence, this is what he was asking for. If you want some evidence in regards to the presence of Israelites in West and Central Africa, I will definitely provide that information for you. If you want knowledge of their migration routes into West and Central Africa, I'll also be more than happy to present that to you, right? So we'll see if he shows up. I'm going to give him about 10 minutes. If he don't show up, then he just don't show up. Oh, he's here. All right, so I'm going to wait for Dimitri, and who was the other brother? Let me see. Hold on. What's this guy's name? Joser Geb Rasabantu. I want to see if he joins in as well. All right, so I'm gonna give it a second. Let me see. You there, Victor? Hold on. I can't.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
It's on my end. You there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, let's proceed.
What's going on? All right, hold on for 1 second. All right.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna mute you real quick. Okay, let's see. Where's these other two at? What's going on, man? What's going on? Dimitri, you muted. There you go.
Shalom.
Shalom. What's going on, King?
I cannot hear you.
Can't hear me? Victor, you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit.
Victor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can definitely hear you.
All right, Dimitri, maybe it's your headset or something. You got to check.
No, I don't have no headset on.
Oh, so you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't hear you clearly. So I was about to put my headphones on just so I can hear you better.
All right. And I need somebody to tag the other brother. What's his name? Joja Geb Rasabantu. Somebody could send him a link so he can come up in here as well.
What's going on in the camera?
What you say?
I asked what's going on with my camera or your camera settings.
You talking about my camera setting?
Yeah, on the interface.
Oh, what about it?
I don't know, it's tilted. Let me expand.
Oh, you said mine's is tilted. Mine's look fine. To y'all, those of y'all who are here, let me know. Hit 1 if you can see me centered, if you can see Victor centered, if you can see Dimitri centered. Hit 1. If something is off, hit 2. Let me know before we get started.
That's interesting.
Let me give them a second. So, Victor, where are you located at? Where do you reside? Your domicile?
I live in Kenya. I'm Kenyan.
Oh, you're Kenyan.
So,
okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm on the outskirts of Nairobi.
Nairobi. Okay, cool. All right. Everybody says it looks good. So, are we still off center, Victor, or are we good?
No, I had to tilt my own screen.
So you're good. Okay. All right, cool. So be good. All right, so we'll get started with this discussion. So what I'm going to do, out of fairness, before we begin, I'm going to let you kick it off, Victor, so I can hear what your grievances are, and then provide to you what I told you I would show you. Before I begin, are you familiar with this platform, or do you know what's going on here or no?
Not really. I generally tend to use Zoom. So this is the first time on this platform.
Okay. So you know currently we're streaming on YouTube, right? So okay. Are you familiar with this YouTube channel?
Not really.
Okay. Are you familiar with my name by any chance?
I can't say that I am.
Okay,
that's the first time I'm actually even hearing about you.
Okay, so that works. All right, so that's cool. All right, so the cause of the discussion was based on a post that you had placed on Facebook, right? Your initial post that you posted on Facebook, right? So for the audience that's watching, can you please, I guess, reiterate what that is? What was that post that you placed in the Final Battle group, Facebook group?
I'm guessing you can see the text that I'll be typing, right?
You said the text?
If I send a text, not private chat, is there like interface where I can actually write down, type down what I'm actually saying?
Oh, that'll probably be in the back chat. But I mean, can you speak it? Can you just say it?
Not currently, because I'm actually also on something else.
You said you're also doing something else?
Yeah, it's 8:51 a.m. over here. I'm working.
Oh, you at work? Okay. Yeah.
So this, where can I post the chat? I can be writing it down.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out how this can best work. I didn't know you was at work because I see you was asking for the link, so I provided. I thought you had the means to chat. If not, I mean, we can always do this another time if you like.
No, I said you can actually just be posting whatever I'm actually typing down.
Okay, so let me see if I can see what you're typing in. Okay, so type something now. Let me see if I can see it. Okay, so I see what you said. All right. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to have to... Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to get your post because I need to show it to the audience so that way they are familiar, because we're live on YouTube right now. So there's people in the audience that's watching this, right? So they may not be aware of the context of the discussion. So I want to preface it with the context before we get into the dialogue, right? So that way they know what's going on, right? So I'm trying to find your post. Let me see. I think I could find it. Give me 1 second. I only have the last one. Dimitri, do you know where the initial post was at?
The initial post?
Yeah.
No, I can go find it real quick if you need me
Yeah.
to.
Okay, no, never mind. I found it. All right, cool. I'm gonna put it on the
All right.
screen so everybody can see it. Okay, hopefully this is all right. Here we go.
Oh yeah, before you continue, Ak, I wanted to say thank you for having me on your show. And I'm not going to be rude or disrespectful to the guest or to anybody else on the show. I just have one simple question for the guest, and if he can present evidence for it, he can. If he can't, then so be it. But I'll wait until you done and do what you need to do before we get to that, because
All
it's
right, no
going to be
problem.
a little off topic too.
Yeah, that's fine. So after we lay this out, then what I'll do is that I'll hand it off, and if Victor is still available, then you can finish dialogue with him. And again, thank you for coming on, Dimitri. We supposed to have built a long time ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is gonna be one of many discussions we'll have together. So I appreciate you being here, my brother. All right. I just didn't want Victor to feel like he's being, ambushed, and that's why I said if his associate, his comrade in arms that was on the post wanted to come in, he's more than welcome to come in. All right, so this is the initial post. Hopefully y'all can see it. Let me know if it's clear, if y'all can see it. Can you see it, Dimitri and Victor?
Yes, I can see it.
Hold on, let me get this. All right, so chat, hit 1 if you can see it. Hit 1 if y'all can see it. Let me know. Somebody says that my video pauses every few seconds. I'm not sure why. You said 1. Okay. All right. So is anybody else seeing? Anybody else seeing my camera freeze? Somebody said my camera's freezing. Because I want to make sure y'all see what I'm about to put out here. So just for the record, those of you who are part of the Patreon, you're already familiar with a lot of the stuff that I'm about to share, right? And some of you may be familiar with it elsewhere as well. Y'all can see it. All right, cool. But if y'all do notice any glitching or anything with my video, let me know, right? Let me know in the chat. And what I'll do is I'll switch over my connection because I want to make sure y'all can see it. All right. All right, so this is the initial post that Victor posted, right? It says, so Israelites supposedly sojourned in West Africa for 1,500 years, and nobody's all inclusive, if we understand English grammar, nobody saw, traded, warred, intermarried, or ever, again, an absolute definitive, heard of them. So I want to make sure that we are clear of what's being said here. So in response to this, I said to the brother, my brother, I will show you primary evidence of Black Jews in West and Central Africa, because by showing you this evidence, it nullifies this post. You can't, whenever you say nobody and ever, you are making absolute statements. So all somebody has to do is provide one authentic piece of evidence, and I'm gonna provide several, not just one. Matter of fact, I got over 30, but today I'm just gonna throw 5 of them out there just for fun. But I got way more than that. What I'm saying is the moment that somebody is able to show you one authentic piece of evidence that proves their existence, existential, within the demographics of West and Central Africa, which it would have been notated during that time, because the splitting of Africa, we didn't get it to the 19th century, right? But prior to that, what was considered West and Central Africa, what people will call Jews of Balad al-Sudan, right? In that region, we're going to show not only just in those 2 regions, but also in East Africa. The brother also added a stipulation about showing that they connected to the bloodline of Shem. He was dialoguing with another brother on the actual post that was making those claims. I didn't make any of those claims. I'm only going to defend the claims that I said that I will provide to the brother. Now, if he has additional questions after that, I may defer him to the person that he was having a dialogue with. But in regards to me, I'm going to just show you evidence of Black Jews being in West and Central Africa, that other people knew they existed. They spoke with other people. They even intermarried other people. They traded with other people, and they didn't really war too well with other people. And there was a reason for them not warring. They didn't have the resources to go to war, so they didn't war with nobody. but we can show intermarriage. We can show that people saw and witnessed them firsthand, and we can show trade. Not only am I going to show you primary sources, I'm going to show you secondary sources for experts in the realm of African Jewry, and they're also going to say the same thing. The number one scholar, one of the number one scholars in that realm is Tudor Parfit. He's one of the number one scholars in that area. Edith Bruder is another scholar in that region, and they will verify and validate through their own books and articles in which they've written in academia, and the organization that they created, the International Society for the Study of African Jewry, which I was a part of in 2017, 2018, and 2019, where we had to submit papers in regards to this subject matter to authenticate evidence whether or not Black Jews and or Israelites existed in West, Central, East, or South Africa. We already know there was in North Africa, right? We got a whole record of Moroccan Jews, but I'm going to show you Isidore and his family line, which came from Moroccan Jews that showed up in Mali, what we call the Empire of Mali, and it was found in the Timbuktu libraries, where he's one of the scholars that's responsible for categorizing, collating, and displaying the information through translations. He speaks French through translations, so that way it's available for the world. We're going to show his family lineage that he claims, and this is on record, that he descends from a clan of Moroccan Jews, colored Moroccan Jews, Jews of color, Moroccan Jews who went and settled in Mali because of the Mohammedan persecution that they were experiencing and the rise of Islam, right? So we're going to show that as well. And then I'm going to show you Janice R. Levy and her paper that she wrote about it. I'm going to show you Tudor Parfit and his paper that he wrote about it. Let's get into this, right? So before I proceed, Victor, I'm going to ask you, yay or nay, do you rescind your initial your affirmation, or you want to continue to stand on it? I need to know that before we proceed. You can say yes, yes, I rescind it, or no, I don't rescind it.
First of all, I actually want to address the text itself.
You want to address
word
the
for
text?
word.
You mean
Yes.
the post?
Exactly.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me type this down.
Sure. I'll read it. I'll read it once you finish it so they can follow. And just for those of you who are watching, thank you for joining. At this moment, it's 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Brother Victor. He's over there on the other side of the world. So it's early in the morning for him. So thank y'all for being on here tonight. What I'm going to provide is just a short glimpse, a preview of the evidence that does exist, that is authenticated by experts in the field. And that is non-biased sources, meaning that it's not the group themselves that say that they were there. These are groups outside of them that witnessed them in these areas. And once that's provided, again, I wrote a paper on this, right, for the ISSAJ. So I wrote a paper on this, right? And those of you who have signed up for my Patreon, I did a whole series where I was giving you all of these primary evidence and sources and secondary sources from experts in the field who are authenticating the fact that Black Jews and or Israelites existed in West and Central Africa, and they were witnessed by non-biased sources. The testimonies came from non-biased sources as early as the late 1400s. That's how early it is. Actually, it goes back further than that. If you look at the Saharan West Africa through Muslim sources, we have evidence of that as well. So, I mean, it depends on where you want to go. We have Saharan, we have sub-Saharan, depends on where you want to go. Anywhere from the Senegambia area to Guinea all the way down to Loango, right? Which neighbors Angola and which neighbors Congo. So this is where we're gonna showcase where they're at, where they were located in these areas, and we're gonna put that forth, right? Hope in Jezreel says 6 a.m. in Ghana, early in the morning. Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate that. All right. So, okay. So Victor says, first of all, in a debate group between Hebrew Israelites and Comedics, my question about Israelites means Hebrew Israelites. So I mean the people in America claiming to be of Israelite extraction. So all right, let's lay it. So establish a connection between those Jews and Hebrew Israelite. So you want a connection between Black Jews in West and Central Africa and Americans who make the assertion that they are quote unquote Hebrew Israelites. Is that what you're saying? Because like I said, all right. So once I showcase that to you and I explain to you how this works and what's going on, before I do that, like I said, do you still stand on the premise that you laid here? See, I'm addressing this, and from this we can lead into that connection that you're talking about. But I'm addressing what you put in the page. You said, so Israelites supposedly sojourned in West Africa for 1,500 years, and nobody saw, traded, warred, intermarried, or ever heard of them. That is what I'm asking right now. After I substantiate this particular assertion for the affirmative, since you're taking the negative, I'm going to then launch from there into further discussion. I just want to know, yes or no, do you continue to stand on this post? That's all I'm asking. You can say yes or no in the chat. You can say it, right here. It's up to you. I just want to know yes or no, because this is okay. So you stand on it. All right, cool. So let's do this, right? Let's go into primary evidence. After I showcase primary evidence, I'm going to show you secondary evidence from experts in the field that speak on this subject matter. So I'm going to do for you 2 primary sources, okay? We're first going to deal with the Black Jews in Luango, and then we're going to deal with the Black Jews that was found in Mendinga country amongst what we will call the Wolof Kingdom, okay? So let me show this to you, this source real quick, all right? First source we're going to put up on the screen. I'm going to grab it for you. And this is from a primary source, from somebody that witnessed it themselves, okay? And for the record, I'm going to give you 3 sources, because I want to show you that there's quote unquote white people and Black people, people who are African themselves, that are actually giving you this information and telling you this is what they witnessed, right? So that way, because some people will say, oh, well, they were white travelers, or they were Arab travelers, or they'll say that to you. So then I got a source from people of that own area who saw these people before our current contemporary time, right? That's important, all right? That's extremely important, all right? So let's bring up the first piece of evidence. Should I do Luango first? I think I'm gonna do let's get Vasquez Ferdinand. Let's get his testimony. I'm gonna get his testimony first. Let me grab him real quick, right? And for those of you who want to see the rest of this, you can wait to my lecture that I do, a part 2 of the lecture I did back in 2018. I'm going to do a follow-up lecture to this where I'm going to have at least 30-something sources in it, primary sources, and then I'm going to have testimonies, secondary sources from experts in the field who write papers and books on it, and I have interviews with experts in the field that speak on this subject matter, right? So when I know people make statements like that, I know that they probably are just not aware of the data. So once it's shown to them, they just got to deal with it, right? So the first one comes from a manuscript from Valentin Fernandez, all right? I was speaking about another individual, but I'm going to do Valentin Fernandez, right? I'm going to show you the source, all right? And this book, anybody can go purchase if you want. It has primary sources of the documented history of who we call the Portuguese travelers that went into West Africa, starting from the mid-1400s all the way to the 17th, 18th century, about 17th century. Power waned in about 18th century, right? So let me go ahead and grab it right here. Put it on the screen. Hold on 1 second. All right, and we're going to put the pages up. Let me check right here. Let's grab the book. I'm actually give you the book instead of just a snippet of it. right, so let's bring it up. Where is it at? Where is it at? Hold on, because I have a screenshot of it, but I want to bring the actual book up and read from the actual book instead of just doing it like that. Let me see if I have it. All right, let's grab it. All right, here it is. All right, so let's bring up the book. Share my screen. Okay. So hopefully y'all can see this. All right, hit 1 if y'all can see it. It might be a little small. I'll zoom in, but just hit 1. Just hit 1 if y'all can see it.
I can see it.
You can see it?
On my end.
All right, cool. All right, so this is...
Yes, it's visible.
It's visible? Okay, cool. Okay, the name of this book is called The Portuguese in West Africa from 1415 to 1670, A Documented History. All right, Victor, are you familiar with the Portuguese in West Africa from this time period?
Yes, I did African history from primary school, high school, and I did 2 years of it in university.
All right, wonderful. All right, so you are familiar with this, correct?
Yes, and that doesn't really match the whole Hebrew Israelite narrative. Because the Hebrew Israelite
wait, hold on. Wait, slow down. You said that doesn't match what?
It doesn't match the narrative pushed by the Hebrew Israelites.
I don't know who the Hebrew Israelites you're talking about, but I simply said that there are Black Jews in West Africa who are also identified as Israelites. That is documented in primary evidence and primary sources. And I'm going to show you this primary sources. That's what I said in response to your post. So I don't know what narrative is being pushed by Hebrew Israelites. I'm going to show you evidence because I deal in academia, right? So I also went to college myself. So what I'm saying is I'm going to deal with academia. And that's why I'm asking if you're familiar with the Portuguese and their history in West Africa, then you should be able to tell us about Valentin Fernandez, right? Vasquez. You should be able to give us some information on him, correct?
Not too familiar, but anyway, you can proceed.
Okay. All right. So in this book, I'm going to go to page 74, just so you can get some context. All right. And just so you can see, you want to understand what this is. These are actual letters that were written to various different people, from travelers that was there in the west coast of Africa back to other individuals in Portugal and in Spain. All right. All right. So just so we can look at the map so that we see what we're looking at here. This is the Senegal River. This is the Gambia River, right here, right here. If you see this right here, this is your Niger River. Okay. Just so we can see what we're talking about. This is all considered West Africa. All right. So let's keep going. Let's go to page 74. Let's scroll down. All right. The Wolof Kingdom at the end of the 15th century. So you said you did through African studies, you said, in high school and 2 years in college, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you are familiar with the Wolof Kingdom, correct?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
All right, cool. So were there Black Jews that lived amongst them? Yes or no? Before I read the source.
That's debatable.
Oh, that's debatable. Oh, okay. So you have a source to show how that's debatable? You can provide that? Because I could just be telling you this, right? But I want to show you the primary source. Okay, so I'll continue. I think you're typing. So let me see if you type something before I start reading. And again, I think it might be really small. Let me zoom in. That must be better. All right. Let me see what you're saying. He says the Hebrew Israelite claim is premised on there being a massive Jewish migration from the Levant in 70 AD and sojourning into the 1600s to fit the transatlantic slavery narrative. Kindly expound on the term Jew. Okay. So you said that is the premise of the Hebrew Israelite claim. That's interesting because all Israelites don't make that claim. For example, I don't even use that claim. I don't even deal with that, right? But yes, there are people in the Hebrew Israelite community that do use that proposition, right? And then you ask to kindly expound on the term Jew. All right. So the term Jew, if we want to expound upon it, Shane J.D. Cohen had read a whole article on this when he was dealing with the Black Jews. If you don't know who he is, he's a very prominent Jewish scholar. He's been to several, or he was emeritus professor at several universities. He wrote a whole paper on Black Jews, right? Identifying Black Jews. Matter of fact, let me bring that source up since you asked that question. Let me bring that source up to you. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to use Shane D. Cohen because that goes into the halakhic principle, because that also is how one is defined as a Jew based on how you walk out the implied items that are in the text, right? Through various midrashim, right? But matter of fact, let me get you somebody better than him. Let me get you somebody better than him. Let me pull it up right now. Hold on one second. There we go. Let's get the definition of what is a Jew. All right. I'm going to go to J. David Bleich. All right. I'm going to show you what he says about this topic, subject matter. All right. Y'all let me know if y'all can see this. If you can see this, hit 1, and then I'll proceed to read it. Hit 1. Hit 1, y'all. Let me know if you can see this. I can proceed. Can you see it? Dimitri and Victor, can you see this?
Yes, I can.
All right. Yes, I won. All right. So let's go ahead and let's go do this. All right. This is Rabbi Bleich, spiritual leader of Congregation B'nai Yehuda in New York City. Is well-known contributor, one of the most popular regular features, a survey of recent halakhic periodical literature, which will be resumed in our next issue. He wrote a paper called Black Jews, a Halakhic Perspective. Okay. So we're going to go down here. This is what he says. He says Judaism is colorblind. Skin pigmentation is unknown as a halakhic concept. But properly determining the status of the various communities of Black Jews is totally unrelated to color. The sole issue is that of Jewish identity. The question of recognition of Black Jews as member of the Jewish community must be seen within a context. As such, it is simply one instance of the much broader question, who is a Jew? The problem of Jewish identity is a crucial one. It is not to be dismissed as merely a theoretical question in the realm of speculative anthropology. It is an issue closely associated with Jewish survival. Jews have managed to persevere their identity over a period of millennia without becoming assimilated into the dominant culture of their lands of habitation, whereas other ethnic groups have disappeared within relatively short periods of time. Despite their wide geographical dispersion, frequent and sometimes forced migration, and lack of an autonomous homeland, Jews have nevertheless somehow succeeded in preserving their ethnic identity, right? Let me scroll down. Right? Let's get down to where he gets a little bit more deeper into it, all right? In order to be granted recognition as a Jew, it is necessary for each of the wanderers of the wilderness to present documented proof or to produce witnesses prepared to testify with regard to genealogical purity of the petitioner's lineage. And this is going back from Numbers 1 to 18. This is how it was done during that period of time. And again, they didn't use the term Jew, Yehudi, Yehud, Yehudim, which is plural. They wasn't using that term. Okay, so we're going to show it from a pre-exilic perspective, which he is addressing now, and then he's linking that to a colloquial term that we use today, right? Which is that term Jew, all right? Because that is supposed to refer to a descendant of Yehuda, which is Judah, right? But then it became a blanket term for any Israelite, whether it's the tribe of Judah or any other tribe that's been dispersed. Okay? He goes on to say,
"Can you kindly read my text?" Sorry,
oh, no, I didn't see the text. I'm just reading what's on my screen. Let me see it. Hold on. I think you went beyond what my post was asking. It was addressed to at Hebrew Israelite to provide evidence of the sojourning in West Africa for 1,500 years. The first part of the question was also addressed at those claiming to be Hebrew Israelites since they claim to be Jews by blood. I think the context of my query escaped you. Oh, no, it didn't. It didn't, because you asked me, expound on the term Jew, right? You told me what Israelites claim, and I told you what I was here to prove, right? You told me what Hebrew Israelites claim. That's fine. I'm here to address the post that you made on that group. That's what I'm here to address. I'm here to address it with primary evidence, secondary evidence, and then explain to you the migration routes, since you also mentioned migration, right? And showed you how they migrated and the evidence for such, right? That's what I'm here to provide you, okay? Now, if you don't want to have this type of discussion where I'm showing you primary sources from people who are experts in the field, primary sources from eyewitness testimonies, etc., then I guess you may want to have a discussion with somebody else. Maybe that's what you want to do, right? But if you want to continue this discussion, that's what I'm here to show you. And then after I establish that, then I will show you the connection between that and those here in the Americas. And I use myself as an example because the descendancy from my mother's line comes from what we call the U.S. Virgin Islands, which prior to that was owned by the Dutch and other nations before the U.S. purchased those properties. That's where my mother's side of my family comes from. My father's side of the family is a mixture of various African groups, with the majority being the Igbo group on my dad's side. And on my mother's side, it goes back to the Vili peoples and the other peoples that share the same genetic sequences in the region of Luango, what we call Luango today. And I'm going to show the connection between those two in regards to the documented evidence of those where they came from. I can also show you through the lineage of my family, through my family tree history, how it goes back to these groups that we're about to talk about in a second, right? That connection that goes back to these groups and how we was able to document that, right? Okay. You said mute your mic. All right. So what I'm saying is that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to show you primary. I put up one primary, and then you want me to read what you put in the chat. I did. You told me to expound on the term Jew. I am. And then I'm going to give you another document. Actually, here's another good document, right? Because this one, I don't know if you're familiar with halakha and how Judaism determines who's a Jew based on halakha, meaning that what are you explicitly carrying out? The word halak, the root word in Hebrew, means to walk. Halakha, when you put the feminine suffix, it makes it an abstract concept of the physical concrete to walk. So it is a way of doing something, right? How do you carry this thing out? Whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, whether it's socially, whether it's politically, how do you carry this out? So the halakhic principle and the matrilineal principle from Orthodox Judaism is what determines who's a Jew and who's not a Jew, right? This is what is established today. The matrilineal principle goes back to what we see in the Mishnah, and then it goes into a commentary from the Gemara on that Mishnah. Shane J.D. Cohen actually speaks on a halakhic principle, and he's the one that I was actually bringing up initially to show you his article that he wrote in regards to how a Jew is identified. And now we have this individual here, this rabbi here is also telling you how a black Jew is identified from the standard Orthodox semantic value that the word Jew holds, and how that transitions and carries over to who is considered a black Jew. And then from that lineage, genealogy, etc., how that connects here in the States to those who make the claim that I am an Israelite. So I didn't just wake up one day, turn on the YouTube and just see people teaching about Hebrew Israelites and just jump on that bandwagon. An immense amount of research went behind the decision that I made before I was able to identify with what I'm about to propose to you right now, right? So this is what I'm addressing. So that's what I'm saying. If you don't want this type of approach and you want somebody who's extremely religious, who identifies as a black Hebrew Israelite, whatever the hell that is, and that they're telling you this premise of 70 AD, we had millions of us went into Africa. If that's what you want, you may want to look for somebody else. What I'm going to give you is not none of that stuff, those tales. I'm going to show you actual evidence. That's what I'm going to do. So let's
exactly. I got you. Yes.
All right. So let's get into it, because again, you made the post. I'm addressing your post because you said if they was in there for 1,500 years, ain't nobody know about them. Nobody know about them. And then when I said there's black Jews there, and I'm going to show you the primaries, then you said, well, what is a Jew? Then you mentioned on the second.
We actually agree on a lot of these points.
Well, hold. I got you. But hold on. Then you ask on Dimitri's post. You said to me on Dimitri's post, oh, well, I want to see the migrations. And then you say, well, I want to see the evidence. Go ahead and show me the evidence. You wanted the evidence for me to provide it, but then you started to get something else, or another argument that I did not make. I simply want to show you the evidence in case you're not familiar with it. That's why I'm asking you in advance to affirm if you know what I'm about to say before I say it, because I don't want to be redundant or mundane. I want to be straightforward. But if you're going to ask, what is a Jew? And then say, well, you know, they were converts, then you got to prove it. Now the burden of going forward is on you, because you said that if I do find a Jew, a black Jew, an Israelite, that is attested in evidence from Western Central Africa, right? Then you're going to say they're converts. And then I'm going to tell you, give me the evidence that they're converts. And then I'm going to show you how we know they're not converts. My brother, people that's experts in this field, you can look me up, my brother. I've written papers. I've dealt with them. There's a whole conference that deals with this subject matter from all types of walks of life, ethnologists, people who deal in religion, linguists, historians. Look it up, the International Society for the... Matter of fact, let me show you to you on the screen so you can see it, my brother. Maybe you're not... Are you familiar with the International Society for the Study of African Jewry? Yes or no? You familiar with that group?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Oh, you heard of it? Okay. But are you familiar with any of the papers that was put out by the scholars that are arraigned in that particular group? They had about 4 sessions.
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to show it on my screen just so you have it as a point of reference. All right. So you can see it. That's what I'm saying, my brother. Maybe you're just not familiar with what's out there, right? And that's okay if you're not, right? Because maybe you'll have a different argument when you're coming across this with those other guys and the stuff that they be saying, right? Because they're not going to show you what I'm about to show you, right? So this is it right here. The International Society for the Study of African Jewry is a community of scholars and students engaged in the study of African Jewry and its diverse cultures, historical environments, religious beliefs, and practices. The objective of ISSAJ are to facilitate scholarly collaboration, research and discussion, and to disseminate research findings through regular conferences and newsletters. The ISSAJ members are an international and interdisciplinary community of scholars and students in African studies, Jewish studies, ethnology, social anthropology, modern history, history of religions, and history of ideas. However, the International Committee cordially invites all academics or students interested in a scholarly investigation of the diversity of African Judaism, whatever their discipline, to participate. All right. They have made several publications. Here's all of them right here. These are all the publications based on the various conferences that were here and data that was submitted to these conferences, right? Here are the conferences they had. There was 4 conferences, like I said, one in 2010, 2012, 2015, 2019. There was supposed to be one coming up in 2021 that I was supposed to have my paper ready to prepare to actually speak at the conference, but COVID hit. So now we waiting until this COVID thing dies out. And then when it does, my paper and my lecture will be presented at this conference, right? So you can keep an eye on that. Matter of fact, put your email in a back chat. I'll send it over to you so you can see me actually disseminating what I'm about to discuss with you and explaining the nuances with you. The same thing I discussed with Edith Buddha, Tudor Parfit, and the others that are there who have an objective stance. Some of them, they don't agree with this. Some of them, they agree with that, etc. So you can see how we've worked into this pot of information. Now, also, when I pull them into question, they are non-biased, which means I'm using sources that don't agree with my personal disposition. And I have to do that so you don't think that what I'm saying is biased and I'm not being objective, because I will be objective with you. It's a difference here. I know all the argumentation that is out there, all the claims that are out there, both pseudo and authentic. And I'm going to show you how, when you make the statement and say that these people are converts, what you have to prove. If you understand what is a Jew, you would have to prove that they're converts, because you'd have to show who converted them, because we were well familiar with the Jews that existed all the way into these time periods that I'm telling you. We know. Are you familiar with the Rodanites, my brother? They're the ones that were responsible for a lot of the major trade routes along the Silk Roads, going all the way to India and all the way up in Europe and back through North and East Africa. Are you familiar with the Rodanites, my brother, and their history?
Not really.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring that source out for you if you want. If we get to that point in discussion, are you familiar with the Sephardim and Ashkenazim?
Yes, very.
Okay, are you familiar with the Mizrahadim?
Yes.
Okay, are you familiar with the Yemenite Jews?
Very.
The Beta Israel Philosopher Jews, which you should.
Yes.
And those who claim to be Bantu Jews that exist in your region of the world. You're familiar with all these groups, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if we was to parse out these groups, minchagim, their customs, parse out their mitzvot, their laws, and parse out their mannerisms, right? We'll be able to have a profile of the nuances that create who these particular groups are. For example, Siddur. Do you know what a Siddur is?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if I give you a Siddur right now, if I read one from you right now, you should be able to tell me which one of these groups it comes from. Correct?
I'm familiar with the term, not the exact technical.
No problem. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, the halakhic conversion, right? Each one of them have nuances in a halakhic conversion. For example, the Brit Milah. Are you familiar with the Brit Milah amongst the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim and what the differences are in their Brit Milah? Okay, that has to do with their circumcision, right? Which is important, right? Then you have a bar mitzvah, something that's called the bar mitzvah, right? So the bar mitzvah is also performed differently by different groups. And are you familiar with that?
Vaguely,
okay. So past that, are you familiar with the burial practices such as the Shiva and stuff like that? Are you familiar with that? The mourning process and all of that, burial process, cultic items they're buried with, how they're
yes,
buried?
I am.
Okay. And as far as the prayers, that's what you see there is your prayers. Are you familiar with the prayers too? The ones that face east, the explanation why they face east. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so the burial customs. What about the dietary customs? Because some of them will say this is kosher. Someone said this is not kosher. Are you familiar with the different groups on what they identify as what's kosher and what's not kosher?
Generally, across the groups.
Cool. No problem. So the reason why I'm asking you all of this, because you got to factor this in. If you're going to say a particular group are converts, you got to show me during the time period, which I'm showing you this, the chronology in which I'm showing you this, the groups that are known at that time, especially the ones that are transversing through North and East Africa for trading purposes and the Saharan desert for trading purposes. We know all those Jews. We have all the records of their customs, their mannerisms, etc. Even the Portuguese Jews or the Nuevo Christians, we have all their practices as well. So you'd have to show that these Jews are converts and that they have the same practices as these groups. You'd have to show that. Then the burden of going forward will be on you once I affirm the primary evidence in these regions. Are you willing to do that today? Would you like to do that another time? Because you made the statement about.
No, I'm continuing with this. I'm actually, whether I'm participating or not, I'm still listening.
No, I understand, but I just think yes or no. Are you willing to do it today, or would you do it another time? You could say today or another time. That's all.
Like I said, I'm actually listening.
Okay.
So,
right. So this is just a discussion now.
Like, I wanted to point out something. Yeah.
Sure.
I think from the beginning. Excuse me. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. You have the floor.
Yes. I wrote something on text. I think there is a diversion in what we are both saying. So kindly address that.
You said that is where that is where we're divergent. I was asking about Hebrew Israelites when I used the term Israelites. So when you said Hebrew Israelites, I think that's what you're referring to. You said I wasn't asking about Jews, as you are very well categorized. I was asking about Israelites, meaning Hebrew Israelites who claim to be related to biblical Shem by direct family bloodline. Well, these black Jews, that's the claim that they make, that they go back to that bloodline of an eponymous ancestor called Shem, right? So that term eponymous ancestor, you're familiar with what that means, correct? This is found in many African cultures when we go to their oral traditions of their anthropogenesis, how they came to be, who was their ancestor.
Yes, I'm familiar with the term.
All right. So if you're familiar with the eponymous ancestor, that's simply what it is. So I don't know what the beef is. Maybe your beef with them is for them to prove that Shem was an actual figure through archaeological or material culture evidence. Maybe that's what you're asking for, right? Maybe that's what you're asking them. I don't know if you're asking for them that. I'm telling you that's an eponymous ancestor. Abraham was an eponymous ancestor. That's what I'm saying to you. But this people group called Israel existed in history, and their migrations are well known. They kept records of it up to this day of where they went in certain areas, right? So they can tie it back at least to the period of the Iron Age 1B period, all the way to Iron Age 2C. So from that time period, they can trace genealogical records going back. And then after the dispersion, especially going into, let's say, Babylon for the Yehudim or those from the tribe of Judah, They have the Babylonian Chronicles, which showcases the rations that's given to certain families that went into exile. We have the Al Yahudu tablets, which are receipts by the Chaldean priests who actually wrote receipts for transactions that would be done by the Jews that lived there in that region, and the return back, the genealogy of the families that returned back, who they were all mentioned in the book of Nehemiah. And scholars actually utilize this in order to determine the authenticity of genealogical records that is made or proposed by Jews that exist today, right? So again, this Shem thing, we could deal with that another time, and I can lay out for you the case for and against that. The Abraham thing, I could do the same thing with you, lay out for you the case for and against that, and then we can go anywhere further that you want to go. If their migration into Egypt, if you want to go, their exodus out of Egypt, if you want to go, wherever you want to go with those, we can do. I just want to answer your question first. We can have subsequent discussions after this, especially when you have time, when you're sitting at home in front of your computer where you can refute and at the very least rebut the things that I'm saying, right? With primary sources and or secondary sources from experts that are in the field. And if you provide that, I need to make sure that you have a mechanical understanding of what you're providing to me, because I'm familiar with all the data on this that exists so far, right? And then I'll have to ask you to explain any proof text that you're providing or bringing to the table. If you're able to do that, then I'll be more than willing to do a follow-up. But here, when I asked you among the Wolof Kingdom, were there Black Jews there? You said that that's debatable and that's arguable. So you must give me the negative position once I showcase the affirmative. Here we go. Let me go back to it. All right. And if you want to type it in the chat, that's fine. We can deal with that. But you have to give the negative after I give the affirmative. All right. So let's go back here to the primary source from the manuscript. Valentin Fernandez, right? Valentin Fernandez was a German who originally came from Moravia and who settled in Lisbon sometime around 1495 and remained there until his death, probably around 1518. By profession, he was a printer, and combined with this, an active worker as a translator and as an official representative of the German community in Lisbon. He had good connections at the court through his friendship with Queen Leonor de la Constre, wife of Dom Joao II, and this, added to the information he obtained from his compatriots, enabled him to have access to the latest information about Portuguese voyages. This information, also in the form of letters, which he sent to correspondences in Germany, was collected together by Conrad Peutinger in Augsburg. All right, so let's scroll down. All right, now is this a pseudo source? Yes or no? Before I get into it, just want to make sure that I want to see if you say this is pseudo, this is fake, this is authentic. I just want to see, because these records are in Cambridge and Oxford as well. If you want me to pull the source citation from them that they actually have in their database there. I just want you to say that this is pseudo, so I can give you where it's been authenticated at.
Proceed.
You said proceed, so that means it's authentic. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go here, right down. This is on page 76. It says, in this country and in Mandinga, there are Jews who are called Gaul, and they are black like the people of the country. However, they do not have synagogues and do not practice the ceremonies of other Jews. Who are these other Jews? The Sephardim. These are Jews that he would have been familiar with because they was in the Iberian Peninsula. They do not live with the other blacks, but separate from them in their own villages. These Gaul are usually jesters and singers and play on vowels and kavakos. And because they do not dare to enter the villages, they take up a position behind the houses of the lords of the village. And at daybreak, they sing his praises until he orders them to be given a ration of millet, and they go their way. And when the Lord leaves his house, these Jews go in front of him, singing and calling out their jests. If the Jews did not know these jests, and if they did not greet the Lord in this way, they would not be tolerated by the blacks. For so great is the ill will felt towards them that they are barred by the blacks and do not dare enter one of their houses except that of the Lord. And if they are found in that village, they are beaten with sticks. No Gaol, whether Jew or Jewess, may take water from a spring until everyone else is finished drawing their water, and then the last person will give them water. Or if they live in a country where there is a lot of water, they have some spring of their own set apart. Now, this source right here, my brother, right? This is the time period we're talking about, 1495 to 1518, during that time period, because this is when the voyages and the travelers went into that region during that time, and they were trying to make alliances with the people of the Wolof Empire, the kings of the Wolof Empire, right, or noblemen of the Wolof Empire in Mandinga country. They said there are black Jews that are there that live separate. They are Jews that look exactly like the people there. However, their customs differ from other Jews. He's from Portugal. They're familiar with the Sephardim. By this time period, 1492, you had an expulsion of Jews that went where? Sao Tome and Cape Verde, correct? And then they started to settle along the west and central coast of Africa, right? As Nuevo Christians. And some of them still as Portuguese Jews. I'm going to bring up the paper from Janice and Levi in a second, right? Would you agree with that, at least to this point, my brother?
Can you read my text?
Okay, let me see your text. Hold on. Let me see your text. All right. So you said Hebrew Israelites, like the rest of the slaves taken as slaves, come from mostly Akan folk, Yoruba, Mandinka, Ewe people, and there's no evidence of them being of Levant extraction in 70 AD. I mean, so, okay. So the black Jews that I'm showing you right now. So you mentioned the Mandinka, right? Give us the region of the Mandinka peoples today, colloquially, that we would have been able to look at on a map back then. Matter of fact, let me bring up the map again so we can see what we're talking about. And then I'm going to give you data in regards to the various tribes in West Africa, who sourced who, like what Europeans on this side, the Western side, sourced from Western Central Africa for what tasks or what trades, and the juxtaposition between these various tribes and where they were located at in the Americas. I'm gonna show you mostly in South America, the Caribbean islands, and Central America, because only a small amount went to the US. However, there were trading posts that came through Florida and Louisiana. So I'm gonna show you these groups, right? So when you say that, that means you are familiar with the entire database of African ancestry that is showcased through those who submit their genealogical information, right, to be parsed out and look at the haplogroup comparisons, because we don't have any aDNA in West or Central Africa that goes back prior to the Iron, Bronze, or the Stone Age, right? We only can compare the 2,000 years of existence and the data that we have today, because very few excavations of skeletal remains are found where the petrous bone is kept intact, where aDNA is extracted from and sequenced, and we're able to look at the genome, match against the alleles with the distinct or the succinct mutations, and be able to measure that against other profiles that exist of people that submit their DNA, right? So I'm gonna show you the map. Show me where the Mandinka is on the map, because you said you went to school for this, right? I want to make sure that the people understand what it is that you're saying. So let me bring up the map again that I had brought up earlier, all right? Bring up the map. Let me zoom out real quick. Off of Guinea. All right. Here's the Wolofs and the Mandinkas, right? So today, what would this be today, my brother? What country would this be today in West Africa? Let me see. I'm gonna read what you say in the chat, because I know you said you can't talk much. Please let us know. Matter of fact, let me zoom in because it might be kind of small. Let me zoom in real quick. Hold on. All right, here we go. So you said the Mandinkas, right? Yeah, Shepo. He is probably Bantu. Victor, are you Bantu?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, we noticed that. Some of the people in my chat, they identified as well, because they're in your part of the country as well. Okay, I zoomed in. I can zoom in more if you want. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. So here's the Gambia River, right, as a landmark. Okay. Here's your Mandingas here, right? The Wolofs is north. Okay. So what country is this here today in Africa? Mali, Senegal, and Gambia. All right, so let's take a look, right? I will bring up a map. Let's go to Google Maps. Right? And again, I'm sorry for anybody you've encountered in our community that may not have addressed things to this nuance. However, I don't deal with, a lot of the fabricated claims that may come from out of my community. Matter of fact, my job as an educator is to straighten that type of stuff out so we have more meaningful conversations when we encounter good brothers like you, right? All right, so let me bring it up here. I'm gonna zoom in right here so you can see it. Okay, let's go to the Gambia River. All right, I'm gonna show you what country that is so you can see. And let me share my screen. All right. Can you see, my brother? This is the Gambia River right here. See? Starts out from this bay right here, and it empties right in, and it goes right here. This is it right here. All right? And it fizzles out as it goes further inland. All right? So this is the Gambia today, right? This is where it's at today, right? Now, my question to you is, north of this would be Senegal, Wolof territory, right? But in those times, Mandinga country consisted of a large portion of this land. It didn't have these boundaries, right? So it consisted of a large portion of this land right here, where you can see my mouse going, right? But the Wolof Empire was north of where this river was at. The Mandinkas, most of them were south of this river, right? So were there slaves, Americans that's found over here in the Americas, sourced from Senegal and Gambia? Because as you can see, the rest of Senegal, as it is today, also surrounds the Gambia and comes all the way down on this area right here. It's a large landmass, right? It's a huge country right here. We're talking about the sub-Saharan portion, which would consist of near the Gambia and south. So were there Americans today who have African ancestry from this region? Yes or no? Because they have a database. Matter of fact, I put the website so you can see the database of. Oh, he left. Okay, I'll wait to see if he can come back. But what I was going to say, I was going to put up the database for him to show him where slaves were taken from West Africa and what Europeans took them, where they placed them, why they had them there, what they were working on, whether they were domestic or in the field, etc. Right? All that data is known. Right? Matter of fact, slave voyage. Matter of fact, let me bring it up. Let's bring it up. All right. Slavevoyages.org. This is at Emory University, responsible for helping to make this possible. I went there and I saw the exhibit before coronavirus. Let me show it to y'all. Here's slavevoyages.org. All right. We have a database here. Tons of databases. We can see where your principal place of purchase was at, the slave landing, etc. So what I want to show the brother is I want to show him that slaves from that region, because he mentioned the Mandinka. Matter of fact, let me get another source while we're still here. Let me get another source. Hold on. Let me get another source. Hold on. It just came to me. Let me go grab this other source here. I should have it in here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here it is. All right. Let's get this source.
My apologies, Ak, but where did he go? He left?
I don't know. He said he was at work, so I'm hoping he left because he was at work and not because he was being overwhelmed by everything that was saying. Because again, I know it's very rare for him to encounter Israelites like us. So it's there he goes. I think he came back. Hold on. Let me see if he's back. Yes, he's back. All right. All right, Victor. I'm glad you came back. We thought you disappeared, my brother. Are you familiar with the slavevoyages.org project, Victor? That Emory University out here in Atlanta, Georgia, was responsible for helping to put forth, and where they have the showcase over there at Emory University. Are you familiar with that? You could just say yes or no in a private chat. All right, so you're familiar. All right. So I actually went over there. I spoke to the curator. And have connections in Emory University because I access their library from time to time physically. Well, I haven't done it physically since coronavirus, yes, but I used to physically and digitally. Right? I'm gonna mute him real quick. Because if he's at work, I don't want them to hear me and I don't want to hear the conversation. That's private if he's at work, all right? But he says he's familiar with it, but not in detail. Okay, so let me show it to you so you can see what their mission is and why this is important, because when I ask you questions in regards to where disembarkments occurred on the west coast of Africa, where those major ports were at, and the tribes that was taken there and brought there, and understand what the slave raiding techniques, the three classes of people that was taken by African locals and given and handed over to the European colonists were threefold. Number one, POWs, prisoners of war, criminals, and lower class foreigners amongst them. Okay, keyword is lower class foreigners. So an example would be what we just read from our primary source, where we had Black Jews that were obviously second class citizens that lived amongst the Wolof Kingdom in Mandinka country. Okay, second class citizens that lived there. As we can see, for the fact that they're not allowed to live in the main hub of where the villages are at, they have to live outside of that, and they have to do jest and play instruments in order to appease the leader of these communities so they can get food. They're second-class citizens. They're foreigners. This was travelers before we had these Europeans grabbing them, taking them, and trading them for slaves. The community, that Black community of Black Jews in that region, disappeared after the transatlantic slave trade. Disappeared. However, we have fingerprints that we can showcase through databases of people here in Americas that some of those groups ended up here. So with that being said, I'm gonna read this for you, right? The digital memory explored the dispersal of enslaved Africans across the Atlantic world. This digital memory raises questions about the largest slave trades in history and offers access to the documentation available to answer them. European colonizers turned to Africa for enslaved laborers to build the cities and extract the resources of the Americas. They forced millions of Africans across the Atlantic to the Americas and from one part of the Americas to another. Analyze these slave trades and view interactive maps, timelines, and animations to see the dispersal in action. So, my brother, if you want to get a database to see all of that, they have it here. I've seen it at Emory University with my own eyes, and here's the website that they put this project down on, okay? So let me show you another source, my brother. I'm going to show you another source, right? Let me show you this. All right, let me get another source. Let me pull it up. All right. Are you familiar with Joseph E. Holloway? You can say yes or no in the back chat. Let me know. No. Okay, no problem. All right. I'm gonna read this for you, and I'm gonna show you. If you want, you can research who he is. But I'm just gonna read this excerpt for you so you can see what's going on, right? And the reason why I like this is because it's very clear, it's very concise, right? About where slaves were sourced from, right? So let's go ahead and read. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit more in case it might be really small, right? The origins of African American culture. The history of the New World is a story of cultural interaction, integration, and assimilation. The rediscovery of the New World by Columbus in 1492 opened the gate to world powers and prompted colonialists, and private individuals to search for wealth. The fertile land attracted farmers, especially from Spain, Portugal, France, and England. And we speak of the Portuguese right now. The new immigrants needed cheap labor to mine precious metals and to do work on plantations. Their desire led to the transatlantic slave trade, in which millions of Africans was brought to the New World to meet this new labor demand. The transatlantic slave trade established a permanent link between Africa and North America as Africans sold into slavery transplanted their cultures to the New World. The largest forced migration in history, the slave trade brought an estimated 500,000 Africans to what is now the United States over some 200 years ago. This total is thought to represent about 7% of the entire transatlantic slave trade, though the exact figures are in dispute and the total volume of the slave trade may never be known. If one considers those who perished in the stockades and on the cargo ships and estimating the volume of traffic to the New World, the total may be well over 40 million. Now, let me scroll down to what I want to show you in his, right? Here's some maps if you want to see. The Guinea coast, the coast of Guinea. That's important. That's what we're talking about, right? We have the Wolof, the Susu, the Mende, the Mandingo, right? The Akan is here. The Fan is here. You mentioned the Akan, right? The Akan breaks down to the Ashanti, the Fante, and some other splinter groups, right? Or cultures, right? The Fan is over here, what we call Benin, right? And then you have the Yoruba that's here. Then you have the Ibibio, the Igbo, etc. That's over here, and what's his modern day Nigeria, right? So we were looking on the Guinea coast, right? This was called the Windward Coast, the Grain Coast, from Wolof, by the port of Guri, all the way down to what we call Kru in this region right here. Then the Ivory Coast is here, the Gold Coast is here, the Slave Coast is here. Now, when we first started bringing slaves over here, look over here to your right, okay? Over here to your right, number one is the Mande. 25% of the Mande is what we have right here. We see region 1 comes over here. The Mande, they loop to include people from the Wolof, the Mandingo, etc. They grab several people or tribes from that region, and when they was laying down their cartography of West Africa and the Americas, they started throwing blanket terms on mass groups of people. However, through that database that I showed you on slavevoyagers.org, and there's a genealogical database in regards to DNA samples that was extracted from African Americans and those in Africa today to show the affinities, we show that it's various tribes that the Europeans didn't even know about in that region that they sourced from. However, 25% of them were taken from where? The Mande region, which is this area right here, right? It stops over here. What we see too is that, which leaves us over here by what we call the Ivory Coast, south of the Grand Coast, south of Cape Mount, all the way here to Cape Coast, okay? Elmina is right here, right? So this is the region where they sourced them from, and look where they brought them. They showed you, this is where they brought them from, right? Savannah. A lot of them went over here to Savannah in this region of the Americas, right? And then we have the other portions, region 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all right? Well, 7, 8, 9, sorry. Congo is here, Angola, you have the Luango Coast here, etc., right? Now, they also talk from the Mano River, 7%, the Akan, 11%. That's what you mentioned, the Akan. Sudanic, people that came from what they call the Al-Balad, Al-Sudan, in that region there. The Niger River, Cross River, the Niger Delta, the Bankango, Bantu, the Onvembundu, Bantu, Luba, Lunda, Bantu, right? It shows you the areas in which they sourced them from. But let's keep going down. I want to show you something as we go down. Check it out, right? Here is the Africans imported into South Carolina to the Americas. That's what we're mentioning right now, right? We see right here from 1706 to 715, they imported about 5,081. This is what we have documentation from, and these almost 20 years of where they was imported from, where they was brought, right? Here's more. 1721 to 1726, it increased to 3,632, right? Let's keep going, right? Here we go. Over here on table 3, origin of slaves imported into South Carolina. What does it say? 19.5% came from Senegambia. This is the region we're talking about right now. Mandinga country, Wolof Empire. This is the time period in which the Portuguese were there, and they identified eyewitness Black Jews that lived there, that looked just like the locals. They were Jews because they understood them from their practices, and they saw by their practices as a Jew, they were different from the Jews that he was familiar with. They were familiar with the Jews in the Iberia Peninsula. How do we know? Because Queen Ferdinand kicked them out. And we have tons of data to showcase who those Jews were, what their practices were, what their customs were, etc. They didn't even penetrate this far at this time. And if you say they did, to convert a whole bunch of Africans, you have to show, number one, what was their intent? What's the motive for converting just a small portion of these people from outside the outskirts of mainland Wolof Kingdom and those communities? Why would they go to the outskirts to a secondary class of people and convert them when they're not the ones with the power and resources in the area? If you look at the conversion that's done by the Portuguese Jews that landed on the west coast of Senegambia, and you go to look about why they were converting, they didn't deal with these offshoot splinter groups that existed there. Matter of fact, you'll see later on, there was letters written to find out who these people were, because the mainstream Jewish community that existed at the time did not know who these Black Jews were. They didn't know who they were. They didn't even know how they got there. However, other letters showcase that some people do know how they got there, and they did explain their migrational routes, and we're going to get into that. That is simply what I want to showcase for you. But let's look over here to the right. Let's keep going, right? Slaves imported into South Carolina by origin and time period. Senegambia, number of cargoes was 17, number of slaves 1,031, 6.2%, right? Then it goes down. Sierra Leone, Windward Coast, Gold Coast, Bada Benin, Bada Biafra, Angola, Madagascar, Mozambique, and others, right? Guinea, other unknown places where we don't have any records for. We can only deal with the primary evidence that we have. Any speculation can be speculation. I'm showing you evidence, okay? The middle period, 1749, 1787, Senegambia, they had 116 cargoes that went there with 6,038 slaves, which was 26.3%. Now, when you see these varying figures, you got to understand politically what was going on the western central coast of Africa at that time. If you understand that history, you know why they're sourcing what they can source, how they're getting the amount they're getting, and what's going on. All of this stuff is important. But let's keep going, right? Matter of fact, let me read this for you. I think this is important. The Senegambia region includes the ethnic groups of Mandingo, Malinke, Bambara, Wolof, and Fula, right? Plural Fulani. Bambara, Mandingo, and Malinke are related ethnic groups that speak dialects of a single language and share the same Mande culture. Malinke, however, are Muslim, and the Bambara are anti-Muslim. Collectively, these West Africans from Senegambia through the Bight of Benin and Biafra represented 60% of Africans imported into South Carolina through the 18th and early 19th centuries. But the heterogeneous cultures placed them at a disadvantage in influencing African-American culture. This is important. It's important, right? Then we go down to Central Africans if you want to get there. But I'm just on the Senegambia region, the Mande peoples, and what they made up. And we see who they made up. It lays it out for us right here. We see exactly who we're talking about. Mandingo, Malinke, Bambara, Wolof, and Fula. All right, let's keep going down. Let's go down a little bit more. Let's go down a little bit more. Let me see what something else I want to show you that I think is important. Let me see if I can find it right here. All right. Origin of slaves imported into South Carolina, 1750 to 1808. Direct from Africa, 4,146. Just Africa in general. We don't have any specifics on that data, right? The total number is 65,466 that we have documented. There's some that are not documented. Gambia to Sierra Leone is 12,441. Then when we get to the Guinea coast, the Gold Coast to Calabar is 18,240. Gambia to Sierra Leone, we have it. Sierra Leone itself, 3,906. So we see the majority of them, where they're coming from. Mande area, Mandinka. So what I'm saying is, when you look at the slave-rated techniques of the Wolof peoples that traded, if you go into the Bambara culture, look at their slave trading. They source from POWs, they source from criminals, and then they source from foreigners who are lower class that lived amongst them. Now, if you want a great book on this, let me get a good book for you on this, right? And then we're going to get back to the other primary source about Black Jews in this region. And then we have more data that we can showcase to show all of this connection, right? No problem, Dimitri. I'll see you another time, my brother. All right. Thank you for jumping on. I appreciate it. All right. Dimitri said he had to go. No problem. All right. All right. So, Victor, let me give you a source. All right. I have tons of books on this. All right. Let me show you a source on this. If you want to read up more detail in regards to this, let me pull up my books. Let me see if I can find them. Hold on one second. I have a whole library that I have online. Let me type it in here. Which would be a good source for this? Here it is. I'll show this to you. This is from my personal library because I have tons of books in there. Here it is right here. All right. Slavery and African ethnicities in the Americas. An excellent source if you want to go into more detail about looking at what we call cultural affinities between the Africanisms that existed in the Americas and what was still there on the mainland continent. And what you will see is nuances amongst those cultures. If you want to understand why that's there, I'll show you the James Horton source, who is a Igbo who lived outside of Freetown, who worked for the CMS and was responsible for telling the history of West Africa. And it's something very fascinating he says about these Jews that lived in those regions, what they had to do in order to survive after they were being taken into slavery. It's very fascinating, very fascinating. But nonetheless, here's a good source for it. Now, I'm going to go to the next source. Before I go to the next source, is there anything that you would like me to elaborate on before I go to the next source? Because I want to give you 3 sources tonight or this morning for you. And then next time we have a conversation, I'll do another 3. I can do another 3. I can do every conversation we have. I'll just keep bringing out new sources. All right. So do you have any questions? You good? Can we move to the next source? Something you want to rebut, refute? You can throw it in the chat real quick if you want, and I'll read it. But I'll give you a minute to go ahead and put something in the chat, and then I'll proceed. I'm not going to stay here too long because I myself have to get up shortly and go to work. Victor, let me know if you're good to proceed. Are you still there? I know you're at work, my brother. After this, just pick a time when you're at home, right? I know that there's a time difference, but just pick a time when you're at home, and I'll make sure I'm available and we can follow up. And next time, because this time I'm just freestyling. Next time I'll have my whole presentation for you, so I can go do each piece for you, right? I can flow right through it. And this presentation wasn't supposed to even be out yet, but I'm gonna show you some of the presentation. I have about 100 plus slides in it, but just let me know. And then if you're interested in my paper that I wrote as well, I could show you the abstract, but the paper itself, I'm not submitting until it's published with the ISSAJ. All right. So just let me know. Are you still there, Victor? Your mic is muted. Let me unmute it. All right, you can say yes or no, or let me know if you can still build. While you do that, I'm gonna bring up the second source. Not sure if you can still communicate, Victor, but just let me know. Okay. I'm not sure if he can still communicate. Well, I'll show the second source. I've mentioned this source before in the past, but I'll bring it up again. All right, let me grab it real quick so we can read it. And again, if you guys are subscribed to the Patreon, all you got to do is go into the search box, search field, and type in Black Jews, and you'll see all the posts that I put in there of these primary sources, right? I even put some papers in there. I mentioned Janice Levy, Tudor Parfit, Edith Bruder, forgot the other guy's name, and the lady that wrote the paper on the Igbo Jews, quote unquote. And again, that has to be substantiated looking at the Hebrewists as mentioned by Edith Bruder. All right, not the converts, the Hebrewists. All right. But let me bring the source up here. Let me bring the source up. All right. All right, so let's bring up the source. All right, let me pull it up on my screen. All right, let me zoom in. All right. Oh, didn't mean to do that. All right. All right, so here is Christian G.A. Oldendorp's History of the Mission of the Evangelical Brethren on the Caribbean islands of St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. That's where my family on my mother's side is from, okay? All right, so let's look at page 167 of this book. Let's zoom in. And for the record, this is one of the earliest sources about the Igbo peoples in West Africa. All right. That's very important. All right. Page 167. All right. All right. According to the same Negro, now for the record, Christian Oldendorf is interviewing Negro slaves on plantation in these islands. Okay. So he's getting this source from a Negro slave that lived in Loango. Okay. This is important. According to the same, let's zoom in. All right. According to the same Negro, there are Black Jews in Loango, where the Vili peoples were at. They're the ones that made the contact with the Portuguese, who observe the Sabbath so strictly that they do not utter one word on that day. Now, that's a custom. If they're converts, show Portuguese Jews that have that custom, show Ashkenazim Jews that have that custom, show Mizrahi Jews that have that custom, show Yemeni or Yemenite Jews that have that custom, show Beta Israel Jews that have that custom, show any Jews that have that custom, right? You'd have to show that they have that custom, right? That's number one, right? They live dispersed about and engage in trade. Remember the brother said, show me where these Black Jews are trading. Here we go. Even though they are completely similar to the other Negroes in their outward appearance, they are so despised by them. Again, something consistent that we see north of this region, all the way in West Africa, in Mandinka country. It says that they will not eat with them. They have their own burial ground, which is located far from the dwellings of the Negroes. Their graves of masonry and figures of snakes, lizards, and the like are painted on them by those who bury the body. This appears ridiculous to the Negroes, since such paintings are so dissimilar to Jewish practices. Again, you have to show Jews who have this custom of burials. Remember, I mentioned that earlier. Okay. Whoops. Hold on. Here we go. Zoom in. Of the assumption, and perhaps not improbable, that the writing or the letters on the Jewish graves appear to the Negroes to be pictures of snakes, lizards, and so forth. So what he's saying was petroglyphs were incised onto their grave posts. However, because the locals there did not understand the pictographic or paleographic or whatever it was that they were using, it appeared to them to be snakes, lizards, and so forth. However, he's saying it was probably the writing style that they did not identify, and that's why they thought it looked like these things. If these individuals are also converts, okay, it must be proven how. Whose customs are they familiar with? Matter of fact, let me give you a great book on the Portuguese Jews. Let me give you a good book on the Portuguese Jews. How about we do that? I want to show you a source on the Portuguese Jews. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want people to study, because I'm not dealing with the Portuguese Jews, Sephardim. I'm not dealing with the Lusa Africans. I'm not dealing with none of them. I'm dealing with other Jews who migrated inland. And again, I'm going to have a third source I'm about to throw. And then next time I have the discussion, I'm going to bring more sources and then bring more sources and bring more sources. It's not like there's just one or two sources here and there and just randomly put two sources together. And there we go. We have over 30-something sources. We have tons of sources on this. And they keep going. So hold on. Let me give you a book to read on the Portuguese Jews, and then I'm going to give you a book to read on the other Jews that existed during that time period, like the Radhanites that was identified by Muslim cartographers and travelers and historians. And I want a person to show me, if they're converts, which one of these Jews, number one, that they have similar practices to, or even minhagim or customs with. Number two, at what point did the conversion happen? When did they penetrate these areas to convert these peoples? What was the purpose of doing that? Number three, where their trade routes were, the merchant trade routes, because some Jews went there not as merchants. They went there just to live, free from persecution, etc. Okay? So a person, the onus will be on the person saying that they're converts to show that they're converts. It's very difficult to do that. Matter of fact, even Tudor Parfit is very careful when he speaks about who these people are. Matter of fact, I could get his source at the end if we still have time. I mean, probably not, because I'm about to go to bed. But I want to show this book on the Portuguese Jews because anybody that says that they're converts will have to show it to us through primary sources that they are converts. They got to show it. So here we go. Let me give you a good source on this. Here we go. I'm going to show you two great books on this subject matter. Right? Here's the first one. The first one is called The Forgotten Diaspora, Jewish Communities in West Africa and the Making of the Atlantic World by Peter Mark and Jose de Silva Horta. Excellent book. If you're on my Patreon, the book is available. You can read it for yourself, right? And we're going to go into the second book. Here's the second book. Second book is called Jewish Autonomy in a Slave Society, Suriname and the Atlantic World, 1651 to 1825 by Aviva Ben-Ur. All right? Second book. I got a third book. Let me get the third book. Here's the third book. Check it out. Third book is Portuguese Style and Luso-African Identity by Peter Mark. Okay? Another excellent book. When you read these books, we have the information to understand who these Jews were, what they practiced, how they practiced, where they migrated to escape persecution after 1492 in the Iberian Peninsula, etc., where they settled, the port cities they had, the people they married, etc. We have all that data. Okay? All right, let me see. The narrative put by these Hebrew Israelites is that all folks brought over during the transatlantic slave trade are of biblical Israelites. Okay, if that's the narrative they push, that's the narrative they push. Fine. If you want me to address that at another time, I can. All I'm showing you is primary sources of Black Jews in West Africa through eyewitness testimonies, primary sources of people that saw them operating in these areas. This is where this is coming from. This is not made up. It's not pseudo stuff. How do I know it's not pseudo? Because the ISSAJ, that conference, for all those scholars, they cite these sources. They cite them. They cite these sources. And they are biased. That's why I said I got to sign up and put forth my paper, my scholarship on this, because there are things that they're overlooking purposely, right? Nonetheless, let's continue on with the sources. Let me give you the third source, okay? So the first source is a Portuguese traveler, right? And his comrades that also travel and voyage in the region. The second source is somebody we call the Moravian Brotherhood that was sent for the Moravian Brotherhood in Europe to go and see what was going on with the Moravian brethren that was in these islands, and he was interviewing slaves, etc. That's the second one. The third source I'm about to give you is from a Black man. Let me show this to you. And I'm going to bed after this. All right. And I'm done after this. Right. All right. Check it out. All right. Of course there was. Definitely. You're right. All right. Look at this. Thank you, my brother Shepo. See this? Shout out to Sister Monica Lamb in the building. Shalom. Peace to you, sis. All right. All right. So these are just the primary sources I'm showcasing, right? So here's the last one. Let me get to the last one. Hold on. Again, I'm not here to defend what anybody else is saying. I can only defend what I say. I can't defend what somebody else is saying. So if there's more information you want from people in that group, my brother, you probably have to go and ask them. I simply just want to show you the primary data that exists in regards to Black Jews in West and Central Africa And if a notion is made that they're converts, a presentation will have to be given in regards to how do we know they were converted, who they converted towards, why were they in this region converting people, etc., what was going on, right? Because there's other traditions that showcase that they've migrated into these regions for various purposes, right? Matter of fact, let me end off on this. I'm gonna show you one last thing. I'm gonna show you one last thing. All right, let me show you this. All right, hold on real quick. Let me show you this paper real quick. Shout out to Dimitri and Moshe the Hebrew for the donations. I appreciate that. All right, hold on. Let me show this last one. Let me show this last one real quick. I'm sorry, I was just reading the email that I just received. All right, let me get the article. I'm sorry, hold on. Great article that I think you guys should read so you can understand what was going on during this time. It's by an individual called Janice R. Levy in UCLA, right? PhD at UCLA. Let me show you this real quick. Let me put it on the screen. I'm sorry, y'all. I did not have all my sources together. This was just a pop-up discussion. So forgive me if I'm taking time to grab the sources because I have so many of them. I'm just trying to figure out which the best one to show just for this discussion. All right. This is called Beyond the Saharan Cloak, Uncovering Jewish Identity from Southern Morocco and Throughout the Sahara by Janice R. Levy, right? From the end of the medieval period into the early modern era, regional anti-Semitic violence in Northwest Africa forced Jews to convert and or flee into other lands. A legacy of imposed invisibility, through illegality of Judaism and fear of expression and Jewish faith identity was a consequence of intolerance towards Jews. For their own safety, Jewish persons had to conceal their faith identity. In doing so, what appears to be a lack of Jewish presence may simply be a strategic concealment of one's interior faith conviction. This paper explores how Western institutional oversight by organizations and scholars continually perpetuates the impression of Jewish absence from these places. Further, the paper seeks to challenge a visible lack of Jewish presence in West Africa by analyzing the complexity of conversion and investigating seemingly invisible identities. Lastly, the paper examines how the efforts of Jewish persons to become undetectable have contributed to the historical illusions of Jewish presence in West Africa. Ishmael Diadai Haidara, he says, now this is the guy who is responsible for a lot of the work done on the Timbuktu library, okay? He uncovered through his work there that his family is connected to one of the tribes of Jews that came from the Saharan to that region of what we call Timbuktu today, right? And left their records there, but in order to escape persecution, that they outwardly converted to what we called Islam, but behind closed doors, they were still practicing their Judaic practices, and they will be called crypto Jews, okay? We find a lot of reference of this. Matter of fact, if you go to look to see what was going on to these black Jews in these regions, that's what they started to do. Enculturate, and or become crypto Jews before they went and was taken when they was taken. This is why it's very difficult to see all of their irregular original practices show up here in the Americas, and why you have to look for the nuances of it amongst the other tribes that was brought over here to the Americas. It's a very delicate study that needs to be done to turn over certain stones and look at certain features in order to make the affinities. It requires a lot of work and effort, right? I myself can't do all this on my own. This is why I leverage sources that have already done work on this. And if you read this paper by Janice R. Levy, she makes a great case to show you that the Jews that was in West Africa, the black Jews, some of them that we're talking about, what they had to go through in order to survive, and how some of them, by reason of such, had to assimilate into the overall cultures in which they live to survive. And they also, communities have disappeared after the transatlantic slave trade. All details going into this. I'm going to stop at these three sources. I was going to bring up another third source, but I'm going to stop on that because I want to unpack on that, because he mentions this in about 4 pages, and I have to read through it and unpack it. However, I will bring it up in my next discussion with you, Victor. If you want to have another dialogue, those of you who are part of my Patreon, you can go and check it out for yourself. All the sources are there. You can read it for yourself. All right. And again, understanding the pros and cons of my position, those that agree, those who disagree with it, what are the pros and cons, what are the arguments for and against? I understand all of this. I love having these discussions. I never say that I'm 1,000% right. I'm never absolute on anything, because with new data, that can sway the pendulum of your thesis, right? This is important, right? But when you understand what was going on in these regions, you know what is going on. You know what is taking place and why it's taking place, all right? Shout out to Cecil Stormy Smith for the donation. I appreciate that, okay? Again, family, thank you for watching. I didn't even know we had this many people in here at this time, but that's awesome. I'm about to close out because it's late and I have to get up at 8 in the morning. All right, but thank you, y'all, for watching. Thank you, Victor. Victor, I don't know if you're still there, if you can say something or whatever. I'm not sure.
Okay, ansonsten. Yeah.
No, he's still working. All right, so I understand he's working. So, Victor, inbox me on Facebook, or I'll message you. I'll inbox you on Facebook and let me know a better time that we can talk, because I know that he was typing stuff as well. So are the folks you mentioned of Levant extraction? This is when we go further into more sources, it shows the migration from the Levant. Yes. Am I saying that they were the predominant group there? Did I say that these Jews that migrated there, they made up all the people that were all the Africans that was in West and Central Africa? No, I'm not saying nothing like that. That's ridiculous, right? I'm not saying anything like that. Right? That's called the Oriental hypothesis. I don't buy into that. I don't subscribe to that. Anybody in my community that does, I disagree with that. And I never say that these Jews brought high culture into these regions. I never say that. It's the Hamitic hypothesis. I don't subscribe to that either. I don't do that. So were the Igbo, the Mandinka, the Ewe, the Akan tribes all taken to the Americas, all of Jewish Levant extraction? I never said that. And that can't be true if I'm showing you the primary sources, which shows that these black Jews were separate from the natives that were there. So no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was an amalgamation of all these groups that came over there. And through the inter-American or domestic slave trade, they were all intermingled. If you look at the Breeding Post, matter of fact, let me give you a source on the Breeding Post. Excellent source on the Breeding Post. Check it out. Let me give this to you. Excellent book on this. Let me show you this. Excellent book right here. All right, this book here is called The American Slave Coast, A History of the Slave Breeding Industry, right? By Ned and Constance Sublett. All right. So why is this important? It's because when you understand the slave breeding industry, you'll see how they took different slaves from different tribes and mated them with other slaves. This is why when you do a DNA analysis for most people in the Americas, because most of the people that are in the African diaspora in the Americas are not here in North America. They're in South America and the Caribbean islands. That's where a good portion of them went, and Central America as well, right? But when you see the slave breeding industry that occurred here in North America and all the various tribes that they took and they bred, they mingled and mixed them up. They had different jobs for these different slaves because they had different expertises, right, of certain trades that they had. But when you look and you understand the slave breeding industry, you see that they were all jumbled up. These black Jews that disappeared after the slave trade were taken in and amalgamated with the rest of these groups. That's what I'm saying. So when it comes to me personally, on my mother's side and on my father's side, I can showcase connection to these individuals through genealogical records, family tree evidence. as well as nuances in oral tradition from my family. And number 3, other genealogical records that we've uncovered through Ancestry.com, right? So I'm working on an entire piece about me personally, right? This is going to be part of a documentary that we're working on doing sometime in the future. Hopefully it'll be completed by the end of 2022 if all goes well, right? And then the paper that I want to submit at the ISSAJ as well to agree with some statements and contend with others, right? So somebody from our community is providing scholarship in regards to this. That is not popcorn scholarship, proof texting scholarship, but understands the entire discussion that's going on and arguments on both sides of the fence, okay? So hopefully that answers your question. Again, I don't make radical, extreme statements. Some people in my community do. I'm very careful. And I say I can make a case for the probability that A, B, and C. And the reason why you got to talk like that as a scholar or burgeoning scholar, whatever, is because you know new data can come up that can usurp your current thesis. So you have to be very careful not to be fully definitive and absolute. I understand this. I know how to walk amongst these groups and how to talk, and I know how to do that, right? So I just wanted to share that with you today, Victor. And again, I'm about to leave. So I'm going to inbox you on Facebook. Let me know your next date of availability so I can put all my sources together. Or I don't want to show my presentation. I want to save that because I'm still adding to it. But I can put some more sources together for you and read through them and go and walk you through this, right? Walk you through this process. How am I coming to that conclusion? Is it because I jumped online and I seen some random Israelite camp saying, we're Israelites based on Deuteronomy 28:68, based on 70 AD, millions of us went in there and we came over here to West Africa and all of us were Jews over here in West Africa, or the kingdom of Judah? Brother, this is not the stance I take, because I understand the argument against. So I need to make the argument for, understanding the argument against, but I also have to understand and parse out the various arguments within my community, the errors in those arguments, and correct them accordingly so we can make a more fortified, what's the best word I'm looking for? Thesis for the proposition of why we identify with our Israelite heritage. All right. All right. So with that, I'm going to stop here. Thank you, my brother Victor. I'm going to inbox you on Facebook. I appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody that watched this. Hopefully you enjoyed this session. If Victor comes on again, I'll have another session with him, part 2. But then after that, all the other data that I have on the subject matter, all the things I want to say on the subject matter, I have it in a paper and I have it in a presentation. All right. And I'm still adding, tweaking it. So it's not fully baked yet because there's so much data that I'm going through. I'm going to tons of universities and their online databases to various slave data banks that are available online, genealogical records in regards to family traditions. I'm going through oral traditions. I'm visiting museums. I've done all of this over the past 6 years. I've been doing this research for a long time, almost 7 years. I think I started in the middle of 2014. I started going to different museums, sign up to different universities, traveling, whatever I had to do to get my hands on sources or information, knowing who's who, to get all this data together. So this is almost 7 years worth of data that I'm compiling and putting together to make this case. And then not only am I going to make it on YouTube, which don't mean nothing, right? You got to put it in the realm of scholarship to undergo peer review. And that is what I'm doing with the paper that I have ready to serve at the ISSJ. They told me that they're going to get things back on track once coronavirus and everything gets together. And when they do, I'm going to fly out there to Europe and I'm going to present this paper. I'm going to give a lecture and I'm going to withstand whatever scrutiny comes my way. This is what we're going to do. All right. That's all we're going to do. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So with that, thank you for joining, my brother. I will speak to you again. Thank y'all as well. And you know what? Matter of fact, let me just quote what he said. Let me just quote what he says. All right. Tuesdays. All right. So this Tuesday, I'll see if I have availability. No, if I do, we're on. If not, then the following Tuesday, I will be ready, my brother. All right. But I just want to post what he says here. And this is why I want to apologize to the brother. All right. I do want to apologize to him. Right. I'm gonna put right what he put in the in his post right here. Right. Okay. So he says, agreed. You are eloquent and professional in your delivery. Most Hebrewites are disrespectful and obnoxious. I agree with you, my brother. I apologize for any bad representation that you've experienced from my community in regards to their being obnoxious, disrespectful, them being boisterous, them over talking, inundating you with information, being extremely religious about it. I apologize for that, right? My community needs work, right? And because we need work, it's going to take some time for us to fizzle down some of those high zealousness, right? And the way that I do it is by dealing with my community internally, right? And by putting out this data and information. It's all on this YouTube channel. You can check it out, right? If you're interested in any papers that I've written, let me know. I can share some with you. If you want some sources on the things that I'm talking about, I can definitely send them to you. But the unfortunate thing is that everybody in my community does not take this approach. The few that do, they don't make the headlines, right? You don't know about a lot of them that do, right? Because the media attention and the general public is only concerned with the extremists in my community. But there's those of us that are behind the scenes doing this type of think tank work in order to provide a fortified position on the probability of the claims that we make and giving you the justification and substantiation that these assertions that we are making can actually be probable claims, right? And the probable claims can be authenticated and a thesis can be provided, given forth this data in an academic style, methodological approach. It can be done, right? It's just the effort to do so is a lot. I spend times reading papers, books, doing interviews, correspondence with people in the field. All of this stuff takes a lot away from my personal life, right? That I've invested to ensure that my community are properly handling this information and being sensible to the critique of the claims that we are making, because that is what I'm entertaining, the critique against the claims that we are making. Now, I can't defend everybody and I won't. However, if there's something that is said from somebody in my community that I agree with, and I say, yes, this statement that they made, I agree with it, then I will defend it. If I don't say I agree with it, you cannot ask me to defend it. However, if you want me to play devil's advocate and take that position so you can see where it's coming from, I can gladly do that as well, right? So with that being said, Al-Shiz, yes, some people do take passion for aggression. They do, right? Again, it depends who you talk to. Like I said, I'm from New York. I used to be in ciphers. I used to be in rap battles. I used to be in beef, like physical beef and, gunplay and all that crazy stuff, like in the streets in New York. So I know how to handle people. I know if somebody's coming to me and they're being humble, they're being respectful, and somebody's coming to me with that energy and that fire, that passion. And I know some people who are just passionate, aggressive by nature. They just have an excessiveness of masculinity and they're just very aggressive, but they don't mean any harm. That's just how they come across. And anybody that has watched this channel have seen that interface with every type of personality you could think about. And for the most part, after a discussion, we are brothers. So my brother Victor, you are my brother. If you need anything, you see that email that's there on the screen, just send an email there. If I can help you or assist you in any way, I'll be more than happy to. But I look forward to our second discussion and then I will bring out more sources. Again, I was unprepared this time, meaning that I didn't have everything together in a cohesive package to present. I was just pulling from various places that I have a whole bunch of sources from. But next time we talk, I'll have them all lined up one by one as I'm presenting them. If you have a rebuttal or refutation, I would like to see it, right? However, my proposal is not extreme like a lot of people in my community. I'm very moderate in what I say. And I'm very careful and sensible on what I put out there because it's important to move that way so that way you're not caught in an egregious error. And that's important. All right. All right, family. So I love you. Thank you for watching. Shout out to the family saying, I'm sorry if I didn't give y'all any shout outs. So I'm saying ISSAJ, the International Society for the Study of African Jewry. All right. That's what it is. The people that's asking for it. All right, there it is right there. I posted in there. All right. Shout out to my brother Aaron in the building, Shalom. And I see the rest in there. Thank you guys for watching. I love y'all. Thank you, my brother Victor. I'm going to highlight you in a bit once I close out. And I see you guys again. Peace and shalom.